Welcome to everybody that has joined our call this evening. This is Scholars Choice Monthly Educational Webinar. Tonight it is Make It Stop, Inspiration and Information for Parents and Teachers to Prevent Bullying. My name's Reagan and I'll just be your host for this evening. So right now I'm going to introduce our guest expert. Tonight we have the honor of having Mike Neuts join the call. Now the intention of this call tonight is to really have parents and teachers gain a better understanding of the powerful role, that you play in raising your child as a peacekeeper. We really appreciate you attending this event with an open mind, and you all have an obvious interest in what you can do to enforce some changes. And we really hope that you leave this call with an understanding that any role of the bullying behavior can be played by absolutely any child. So there are very natural ways that you as a parent or teacher can empower your child to be the one that stands for peace. Now, our guest expert, Mike Neuts, is very experienced in this topic. I'll give you a little bit of a background on him. Mike and his wife, Brenda, along with 3 others, are the founders of Make Children Better Now. This is a nonprofit charitable organization and is dedicated to the betterment of children. Now, Mike has been educating youth and parents, professionals, everyone in the respect to emotional, physical, and mental health ramifications of unacceptable behaviors in youth. And many of you may already know the experience that has really fueled Mike's mission. I'm just going to give you a bit of an insight into it. So the reason that Mike has really taken the initiative to want to change the way children treat each other is because of a personal experience. And if you've yet to hear the story of his son, Myles, I can assure you that it's impossible not to be moved by it. So Mike, I would just like to personally welcome you to this call and ask you now, just to the extent that you're comfortable with, to share and recount the details of the day that your life changed because of bullying.
Thank you, Reagan. It's a funny place I'm in. I'm very much a person that wishes he wasn't me, but I'm very comfortable doing what I'm doing. I have spoken to over 200,000 children, coast to coast to coast in our country. I can't guarantee anything except maybe I can make young people think. And it started 15 years ago this February. I called to work. My wife, her demeanor did not seem to be alarming. Told me that the school had called, one of the boys was choking, and I reacted with haste and fear and a lot of things I can't describe. I drove very quickly to the school, seen a paramedic shutting his doors of his rear of his ambulance. Told him I was going with him. He didn't say much. I don't think he said anything. Jumped in with him. Went to the hospital. The doors were open, and there was a paramedic and police officer doing CPR on my oldest son, Myles. They rushed him in the hospital, and I was taken in, and I had to give a little info about Myles. I was put in a small waiting room and waited. By the time doctors came to us, the first person to join me was the police officer, then my wife, then a priest. And if you're in a waiting room with a police officer and a priest, you probably have nothing but bad news coming. We were told he was found hanging on a coat hook at his school, unconscious, not breathing. No one knew how he got there or how long he'd been there. He was in critical condition on life support, and he was being airlifted to London. We spent the next 6 days in London. A lot of things were done. Our house was searched. Sexual assault test was done on Myles. The school was closed. All the kids and staff were questioned. And 2 boys were identified as 2 boys who had found Myles hanging on the hook. And by the time the first day and the second day questions were over, although the police were very thorough, still checking other things, these 2 boys were taking more of a prominent role. And it became a question to the police officers, did these 2 boys hurt and kill Myles Neuts? And at the end of the day, although nothing was ever determined, the verdict of the inquest was undetermined. it was very clear that there was conversation as to how Myles had become involved with one or both of the boys, and it was about a $10 bet, and there was talk of making the bet go away and make it go away on Friday, and my son never came home after a Friday. So with the verdict of undetermined, I talk about bullying everywhere. Some people believe that it was worse circumstances than that, and I won't ever believe that 11 and 12-year-old deliberately went to school to hurt, harm, or kill my son. To bully him, I believe that. I don't believe the rest. And we could have fallen down and felt sorry for ourselves, or try to study young people and see how we could lend our voice to the ongoing phenomenon called bullying, and maybe bad behavior overall, and trying to be positive in our commitment to youth, and not only advocating for change with politicians, school boards, and law enforcement, but with parents and with the children themselves. So it's been a very busy 13 years since the inquest ended.
My goodness, I'm sure that story never gets easier to tell, does it?
I no.
No. But what you've done, Mike, to use it as fuel for your mission here is amazing. And I've actually read before that you've said you could have chosen to sit back or stand up, and you chose to stand up. So as a parent, what you've done is really inspiring for every parent and teacher on this call that can really take that inspiration and stand up as well.
That's, at the end of the day, that's got to be my hope, to change the world, right? Is that one person at a time. Maybe they don't hear everything I say, maybe they don't agree with everything, but maybe they change a little bit of their everyday life in a better way.
And now, Mike, did you know did you know that your son was being bullied? Did you have the idea beforehand? Was it very obvious?
Actually, in our story, there is nothing to say that Myles was ever bullied at school prior to that day. It very much looks like the first time he was bullied, to make a $10 bet, apparently, that Myles had won, go away, the consequences killed him. We have we know of things that happened at Cubs, but Cubs wasn't anywhere near his school, and none of the same people. And we were aware of, we witnessed a little boy smuck him on his birthday party at a entertainment theme place, and I think the little boy was jealous and just smucked my son, but there was nothing else ever with Myles, ever.
Right. So it can even be something just completely out of the blue. The child doesn't have to have history of being bullied, do they?
And you know, the number one thing that a lot of people running their everyday lives as parents and teachers, they have to look for repetitiveness to actually identify, in most cases, with the size of classrooms, etc. But let's not forget that it can be one egregious act. In our case, the original definition of bullying in the Safe Schools Act called everything repetitive, and it didn't fit us. So if it wasn't bullying, what are you going to say? That it was murder? That two kids murdered my son? I don't think we want to say that.
Right.
So we fought for one egregious event, and we got that last fall in the new Safe Schools Act.
Wow.
Excuse me, the Accepting Schools Act.
So this is actually a great intro into our first point here. How parents and how parents and teachers can really connect with their child. If you want to maybe discuss a little bit how the topic of bullying can be approached as either a parent or teacher, and what signs they should be looking for.
Well, the signs of a victim is just a child pulling away and becoming a little bit more of an introvert than they were ever before, and that's always a sign. A victim will usually have things missing, might have unexplained marks, might starting to be closing up and withdrawing within. A lot of time alone and quiet. Bystanders are harder to spot, and in the perfect world, we would never pick them off. But in today's world, I would suggest that if all of us haven't experienced all three roles, the one we probably have experienced the most is as a bystander. All children should be talked about not standing around and watching bad words or actions being inflicted, because it gives power to the bully and shame to the victim. The bullies, we can pick that up rather easy, but with outbursts at home, with always having something new and can't explain how they came to have it, with the inappropriate behavior that all of us as parents know that some of our children have. And some bullying can be accidental without any forethought or malice, but some of it is very much planned and very, very malicious. So with the bullies, we got to watch for, having new things and having the ego that we know all about. I mean, a lot of people who are not habitually bullies will be very modest and unassuming of life, and that's a nice sign for all kids, I think.
Right.
And so with a teacher, if a teacher has a young boy or girl attaching to them in the schoolyard, for a lot of reasons, and we can't go into all of them, that teacher, no matter how busy their day might be and or how other things might be more important, might want to lend themselves to that attachment, because God only knows whether that child might have any other attachments at school and or if they have any other attachments at all anywhere in their life.
Right.
And then parents, we got to be conscious of a whole lot of things with the face-to-face bullying, to communicate, to talk, and to lead by example.
Mm-hmm. So if you are a parent that is really identifying your child as possibly a bully, what do you think there's a really great way to connect with them without seeming like they are getting in trouble?
Yeah, it's a constant communication and acknowledging their lives, and not generalizing a statement or a question to a child when they come home. Just don't fire off, "How was school today?" No, pay attention. Ask how lunch was, how recess was, how math and English and gym was, and break it down and actually give it a few minutes. And even if it seems redundant to you, at least you're paying attention to a little bit more detail and trying to engage a conversation to show that you care. And you might not always get the response you want, but at the end of the day, no one can say that any parent didn't care. By just saying, "How was school today?" and then continuing to cut the carrots on the counter and not say another thing. Some young people spell love in strange ways, and I was taught that those young people spell love T-I-M-E. Give me time and I'll know you love me. So, all of us can pick off the victim, the bystander, and the bully by communication, paying attention, and watching the children and their modesty and their egos and their demeanor of how they carry themselves with both their words and actions.
Right. Wow. Sorry, my slideshow keeps skipping slides on you here. That's actually a perfect segue into the next topic. You mentioned really leading by behavior. Modeling the proper behaviors is something that is obviously really important for the parents and teachers. So as that role, as the authoritative figure, what is the best way to express to the children that they should be behaving that way? How should parents do that?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do. By being helpful, by being level-headed, by not letting our emotions dictate how we will conduct ourselves throughout the day, because if we're always talking with a lot of angst and trial and tribulation in our voice, our young ones pick up on it. But after saying that, easy to say, sometimes hard to do, but so many of us, I heard it from my parents even, and I know that children are still hearing it today. We cannot trivialize a child being bullied by suggesting they fight back. It's 2013. A fist fight turns into a knife fight turns into a gunfight. We can't tell them that. That's craziness. And that shows something about us, and that's who they're going to want to be if that's how we come across to them. We can't tell them sticks and stones will break their bones, names will never hurt you, because that's just trivializing it, and they might just close up and not talk to you anymore. We can't tell racist and sexist and homophobic jokes and really think they're funny, and then expect our children to pick up common decency and courtesy and kindness and dignity and respect. If we're going to be the people trying to think we're funny with these kind of jokes, even, excuse me, there was a movie review earlier this year with the lady from the sitcom Mike and Molly, and a film critic went overboard describing this female actress as a fat person, and the next day in many talk shows across the country he was being ostracized for the word he used, fat. And whether it's blonde jokes or fat jokes, all of that's got to stop, because that is where children get the inappropriate behavior to think that they're just having fun in describing someone in words that are harsh and unkind. So we can't tell them things like everything I just mentioned, or do as I say and not as I do. And we got to be mindful that it can build common decency and all those other things that I named earlier, and to build the self-esteem and self-confidence that every child needs has to be modeled. And if we think that just the educators are the only people that have a role in doing this, we're absolutely wrong. Whether you're a judge, a doctor, a cop, a priest, a parent, a factory worker, a blue-collar worker, a white-collar worker, we all have a role to play. And because God only knows that sitcoms and movies and video games got enough of the other things that we don't have to act like we're trying to be part of that. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. This is great, the way you keep leading into every question, because next I just wanted to really discuss social media usage, being really social community conscious, because in today's day and age, the majority of children, just over even a young age now, they're starting out to get Facebook, get Twitter, just really have an online presence. And that is obviously a huge forum to turn into a bully or become really bullied. And we're seeing in the media right now so much of the outcome of those situations. So how does a parent or a teacher even really monitor social media usage and be able to figure out whether or not their child is being detrimental to somebody else in their social community or themselves?
Well, you know what? Again, if we ever do anything to cross our children's belief in us that we believe in them, in other words, if we compromise ourselves to spy on them and they catch us, we might be hurting ourselves bad. And yet, I know police officers and some parents who started their own Facebook page as an alias and are privy to an awful lot of things that the kids wouldn't give the adults credit for being that smart to do so, just like some of the online bulliers do themselves. And the police officer has shut down 3 or 4 bush parties, etc., because he sits on Facebook as a young person, as a young female. Now, having said that, you go to the other end of the spectrum where you're on Facebook and some young kids aren't even thinking about what they're throwing out there, and you can sit there as yourself and see some of the things. And you have to, say something if they're close to you, your children, your friends' children, your neighbor's children, your wife's brother's sister-in-law's children. We have to say something. We just don't let it lay there because it's part of the angst on the social media. We can't allow children to have their computers in their bedrooms. I mean, in my presentations, I tell people this. How do we find out as parents that our child is the cyberbullier? Well, this usually happens. There's a knock at the door and there's police officers with a search warrant and they're taking every piece of social media in the house. And how do we find out that our child is a victim of cyberbullying? There's two words to that. Too late. And we have to be smarter than that. There's parental controls. There's other things we can do. There's the communication again. There's the teaching of right and wrong, good and bad. And you know what? When I talk to kids, I ask how many of us have done something bad. I put my hand up, and I ask how many of us feel good. No one leaves their hands up usually, almost always. And then I ask them, well, who's helped a little old lady with their groceries, shoveling snow, and didn't take money for it and felt really good? 95% of them have their hands up. So we all know it. We know the good and bad, right and wrong, and we know that there's personal self-satisfaction for knowing when we help, and there's not too much of that when we go the other direction. So coming back to the cyberbullying parents, we have to communicate this, and we have to trust our children. It is so easy to trip on the internet. My first laptop was through a school board when I became a trustee, and I forget what I was doing one day, but I stopped because my wife called me, and I was writing in something in a Google search, and it contained the word boy. Well, all of a sudden, I switched over to the Google search engine, and all these things came up, and you do not want to open all those things. There's some bad things there, and it's that easy to trip and fall. I met a police officer that told me that child porn, that they have a satellite now, and it doesn't quite work that you're innocent until proven guilty when you're caught with this technology for child pornography. And you know what I say? So be it. Police officers learn to be police officers by the bad people. The bad people aren't great teachers, but the police officers are great learners.
Right. And it's true that the children really have this massive tool using the internet, and if the proper the protection isn't put on that, they could find themselves in situations that they didn't even mean to get into, right? And then they're dealing with having to defend themselves and everything.
And it can be by accident. It can be on purpose. And everybody in society wants to be important somehow. The children are more mindful of it than some of us that move on in age quickly. And every child should have a dream. But if them dreams start to crash and burn and they have some self-doubt or some self-image issues, or their marks aren't where they were hoping to be for whatever their career path was, and then a bully injects with their words face-to-face, and then it continues on the internet. When I was a little boy, I could go home and pull the front door shut. No one came into my house after I got home. My dad was very big. I always had a pet, and there was 5 boys. No one came into my home. But in today's world, I can be picked on face-to-face all day, go home, walk in the door, and sit down at my computer, and there they are heckling me and doing nasty things.
Yeah, unfortunately, children have really lost that sense of protection.
I've been asked a ton if bullying is worse today than yesterday. My quick answer is no. I've had people apologize to me for doing things to me that if for instance, they would have let go of my ankle and I would have bounced off my head from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor of my high school, I wouldn't be here today. Thank God they didn't drop me. I met a principal in Montreal last week, said that 50 years ago when he was a young person in a grade school with a guy he still is friends with in Ottawa, he's in Montreal, that this young man was hung on a coat hook over 40, 50 years ago. And I mean, I was stunned because I thought that was the new phenomenon. But he told me it happened a long, long time ago because we mimic behavior that we see all over the place.
Absolutely.
And then bullies inadvertently will use it, and some kids just thinking, I'm at school, I've been watching wrestling all weekend, I want to show somebody something, I knock a kid down, and my best friend, I do a double knee drop in the middle of his back. He's paraplegic the rest of his life. And that's by accident. So then you throw in the bullying behavior, and oh my God, an accident can kill pretty damn quick.
Yeah. On that note, Mike, we have a question that I'll actually just interject with right now that an audience member has brought up. Have you heard of or seen the documentary Bully?
Yes.
Now, do you think that I'm assuming this audience member might be a teacher because she's wondering if there is a benefit from maybe showing that movie to students?
Well, the benefit of showing that movie, most teachers, God bless them, have the pulse of their classrooms, and the benefit of that movie is exactly like my presentation in that it creates empathy. I haven't watched the whole movie because the boy with the glasses, the victim in that movie, reminds me of my son a little bit, and it got a little. I just had to, go channel surfing instead of sit through it a couple portions. So I believe it's empathy building, and I believe whether you're a bully or a victim or a bystander, the kids with no empathy, no feel for one another are the kids we got to be very mindful of at all times. Now, having said that, most of us have things built into us. We're wired in a way that empathy plays a huge role in how we interpret and come to grips with what we do and do not want to do.
Right.
So if she knows her students, I think seeing the movie would be helpful if we talk about it. You can't just show the movie and say, have the bell ring and let it go.
Right.
You got to talk about what we've seen, just like my presentations.
Exactly, it is. It is a topic that you just can't bring up without really delving into.
Yeah.
We will move on to our next topic, and I know that this is something that seems like a very, very obvious point to make about the three behaviors in bullying, but I know that it's important for you to express how really any child can start playing any of these roles at any time. If you wanted to describe the three roles a little bit.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to just throw a caution first, and the caution is this, is that, again, many of us are looking at the educational system and the teachers and the principals, et cetera, to be the people to be the cure-all to end all. And again, that is if they have an incident, touch wood they don't, but if they have an incident and a parent is of the opinion that the educators haven't done enough to resolve the incident, well, then there's going to be all sorts of things thrown around. And let's face it, every single one of us as parents get a little bit more emotional when it's involving our children. Having said that, to throw it all at the teachers and the educators is totally unfair because they went to school to become teachers, educators. And maybe some of them showed some gifts to become administrators. But along with those roles comes the inappropriate behavior, whether it's bullying and or other. And now they have to be investigators. And, oh, my God, they have to also be lie detecting machines. And, oh, my God, then they have to be the jury and the executioner. And who gave them all the education to do all of that? I don't know too many teachers that went to school to become investigators or punishers. They went to school to be teachers. Now, having said that, why I'm saying that is because in many children, I can't say all, by no ways could I say all, but many children switch roles yearly, monthly, weekly, daily. Today I was the person picked on. The other day and every day I'm the bystander. And every once in a while I become the bully. And we don't usually get the truth out of the bully, so then we got to start fishing for the truth. And if the victims never reported their victimization, well, it would be quick for any kind of a reason in their background for us to suspect them as the bully and not telling the truth, and that would backfire. So we need the communication. Bystanders are the key. It's amazing how young children in grade 1, children in grade 8, children in grade 12, not everybody, but they know what I'm talking about, will agree with me to the statement, when there's nobody watching me, I let the little kid go, it's boring. So when you hear that from bullies, male or female, and they're saying, if there's no one watching me, it ain't cool. Well, they're telling you, the bystander's the most important person. They bring that power, the attention, the control to the bully. They give the shame and the embarrassment to the victims. And very much they will determine how long, how mean, and how aggressive and embarrassing the bullying will be. The bullies can be, it's a learned behavior. It can be occasional, it can be daily, and it can be so sporadic you can never pick down the person at all times. And then the victims, again, if the roles are constantly changing, they might get through it. But if the roles aren't constantly changing and they become the victims, we all better pay attention, because now with social media, and you already mentioned events that are well publicized, we don't want to see that. We have to, schools are places of learning, fun, and friends. And if we're doing our best to make sure that's happening and everyone feels safe, we will succeed. We have to articulate to the bullies. The Ontario Safe Schools Act had an out for educators to not punish children who would not know the consequences of their inappropriate behavior. And it was an out specified for children that might already be diagnosed and very much identified as a special educational student. But my argument is that those kind of students need more reinforcement than the ordinary kid. You just don't let them have a free pass because they have a struggle in something that's diagnosed or hasn't been yet. It's a wrong way to go. So we have to communicate again. We have to talk to the bullies about their inappropriate behavior and create the empathy. We have to go to the bullied and draw the empathy out of them and make sure that they know that it's always good, whether you're happy, sad, or angry, to let your feelings out. Even a happy person has to laugh. And the bystanders, well, they're the key. There's even a video out there, shows a kid mimicking that he's a bully and there's no one around, and it shows him quitting very quickly. It's very, very well done. I liked it.
Absolutely. We actually have an audience member that has touched on that note, or on that point you're making, that the bully really tends to stretch more, to really grow when they do have a bystander backing them up.
Always. It's boring when there's no one watching. I let the little kid go. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable.
Wow.
You can see it. You can see it here in the shadow in the slide you're showing as well.
Exactly.
You see two people and you see the one person watching.
So on that note, we'll move on to a topic that I know that you actually really enjoy discussing. Now, this is your own personal idea about children being natural resources. Do you want to expand on this one?
I see millions of dollars in those 6 faces right there. I believe politicians, and if God only knows, here in Ontario, we know all about this, and I believe that we have to step out of the box, and we have to step out of the paradigm and take a look around and quit arguing about money when it comes to children, their health, their well-being, their education and recreation. For every one of those dollars invested, we will get an enormous return, but it will take time, because on our other natural resources, specifically oil and gold, almost immediately the next day after the refinement and we have the final product, there's a profit. And there's a profit in children too. But for teachers to have strikes, for school boards to be raising $500 and some odd million a year to support school initiatives, whether they're trips or a new basketball court or whatever, computers, that's sad. My tax dollar is for exactly that. We should take care of these young people with all the money. I have an article that it's 5 years old from the London Free Press, fairly close to where I live, and it's 5 years old, March 8th of 2008, although it was recommended there would be one child psychiatrist for every 4,000 students in Ontario, there's only one for every 38,000. Now, I know that that has improved since then, but I also know that the recommendation has still not been attained. And that tells me that we just aren't putting the right amount of money for the child psychiatrist, psychologists, the educational assistants, the private tutors, the child youth workers. We're not putting enough money for all the systems to be sparking to help a teacher teach, so that a kid comes to school to learn, have fun, and make friends. Because if we were putting the proper money in this, we could solve a lot of these bullying issues, because we would. I have a teacher. She was in Today's Parent magazine over 13 years ago. She's retired now, and it was in downtown Scarborough, and it looked like you were in the slums in Detroit, and no disregard to my American friends. But walking up to the school, I wondered where I was going, and this lady, she proved by putting her money where her mouth was, and by getting her staff to articulate every incident in the school, that she changed the climate of that school. And so there was a student struggling in her class and was very hardcore in the classroom with many children. The board tried to put him in a different school for special needs, and he was truant. The lady said, "Let me have him back." But she didn't have no money for the private tutor, but the board had money for her to get a new desk in her room. So she said no, she wanted the money to go towards the student. The board wouldn't let her, so she sold her new desk and got a tutor for that boy and kept records and proved to the point where she put him back in the classroom, and he was conducive to a classroom setting with many other children. Wow. Where before he was acting out simply because he couldn't read.
My goodness.
So once she got him a tutor, she changed him, and she proved it. A lady named Mrs. Helen Sanderson. I know I shouldn't have dropped names, but she was my hero before I went to the inquest, because I found the article and went and seen her in that school.
I don't think
so I know we can do it. I know we can. Now, if she wouldn't have articulated her findings like a science experiment for selling that desk, she crossed the line. She could have been fired so easy, but she proved. She went against the norm. She stepped out of the box. She proved it. That's when I see the proof. I'm a show me kind of guy. When you show me the proof and I know that it can be done, and with my doctor friends, Dr. Pepler, Dr. Craig, Dr. Lena Ajamari, I attended a conference called Kids Not Cons, and they proved it, not only with the resources to support the children, but the communication, the attention, and the love and the education that every single child, no matter what their behavior, deserves, and we can make them all conducive to mainstream society. I've seen the evidence-based data. I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
My doctor friends are pretty special people.
And this is just as equal across the board to parents or teachers that can make that difference, right?
That's right. You cannot say I love you enough to your children. And while we're all been taught to put food on the table and clothes on our back and the roof over our head, don't let that obscure the most important thing in your life, and that would be the children you brought into this world, whether you brought them in yourself or adopted them. They're very, very important. And even if you just do it with kindness and attention, we will win. Resources are a lot of things. It's just not the money. For the politicians, it's the money. For the rest of us, it's got to be LOVE or TIME.
Right. These are the natural resources that matter.
That's right.
Now, Mike, we are getting some great feedback from the audience right now. Actually, some people already requesting where a link of this can be found so that they can share it with the teachers at their school. So
a link of what? This show tonight.
This will, yeah, the show, and that we will provide to people. But this is just a showing of the ripple effect, that if one person is asking to share it, what it can do for such a big group of people.
Yeah.
We're on our way.
Nice.
Now, we're reaching the mark of about 20 minutes left in our call, and I think it may be a good time to actually open up the board for questions now. Is there anything else that you wanted to really touch on before you allow people to ask any inquiries?
Um, the teachers, we know we have to record on student records. That doesn't have to be for punishment. It just has to be to make sure that if we're red flagging a child enough that we're finding out the causes and getting them the help. Obviously, as bullying continues to draw the attention it does, by having the records, it also will become evidence later for punishment. But the beauty of being a Canadian and living in Canada as versus our southern neighbors is that lawsuits in this country are you have to pay to play, and everybody should know that. But if a lawsuit comes after you because of a severe bullying incident in a school and children have been hurt, we can, if we have our own notes of everything we tried to do to help that child, we can take ourselves off the hook by simply recording it. Parents, we must pay attention to our children, hold them close, talk to them all we can. My 21-year-old has heard me many times that as much as I was condescending as a parent with him and talking to him, I didn't expect him to take every word I spoke to be his guidance, but just to pull out the key ones. And at the end of the day, he will never say his parents didn't care about him. We care a ton about him.
Right.
I'll go to the questions.
All right. We will really open up the board now for everybody to ask away if there's anything that you want to pick Mike's brain about here. And there are a ton of them coming in, Mike, so I will just pass them off to you as I read them.
Can the people hear me that I asked you to hold my hand and walk me through this?
Really walk you through this presentation?
Yes.
No, I think that people would believe that you do this every day, the online presentations. You're quite a natural at it. And actually, we have a few people on the call asking if you would be available to speak at their school as well. So,
well, you can pass them on my contact info if you would like for them questions, Reagan.
I absolutely will. We will get to that right at the very end. But right now, I will ask you a couple of these. We actually have an audience member asking that in your personal and professional opinion, how can a parent and a teacher advocate for more money to get help for our children in and out of the school?
What a great question. I'm not running for any public office, so leave me out of it. But let's start talking to our MPs and our MPPs. We have to talk about supporting children in the school environment. This is what and you know what? Anybody that wants to throw around barbs that we overextended education by starting full-day kindergarten and daycare centers attached to schools, we have the proof, the evidence-based data that works for us too. So pulling that money out is a shame. So the evidence-based data is there. So the easiest thing to do is to start talking to these folks. And I never used to talk to police officers like I do in this day and age, and especially the police chiefs are very clear that the federal government is talking about all these great big brand new super prisons for young offenders, and we have proof that money's better spent on the front end than on the back end. So we need to dialogue and rise concertedly to affect the change, and it takes dialogue, and we have to make sure that every politician knows that this is how we feel about our youth, and let's invest in them like we do every other natural resource. It has to be done. And you know what? Politicians cannot politicize the issue of children's education, health, and well-being. When I'm invited to those kind of meetings, I won't go. But you put all the political parties in the same room to make a joint effort, invite me then.
On that note, we have a great audience member question that I would really like you to address because I know you have so much experience in it. They ask, why have anti-bullying seminars if the bullying is going to continue at the schools anyways? Now, I know you have a very personal connection to that, so what's your take on that?
So why have the anti-bullying seminars if we know the bullying is going to continue anyway?
Yes, and I know
That's a question?
it is a question, and it's a question in a sense where I'm assuming that the parent or the teacher may even be a little frustrated that all of these talks do happen and they still see the unfortunate behavior
Well,
happening.
I think what I've learned is that the bonus about me is that I have a true story, and you can hear the proverbial pin drop. Where I command that kind of attention, a teacher and a principal doing those presentations is the same old every day, and sometimes they don't command that attention. When I first started, I had two teachers unions at the inquest, the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association and CUPE, Canadian Union of Public Employees, and both of them had standing at the inquest, and they argued envelopes of money, which I wasn't interested in at the time, but because I bought the transcripts, I've read them 1,000 times now, and I know that when they asked me to start doing my presentations as soon as the inquest ended, I said, "You're crazy." But then it started, and in the early days, I didn't have a clue what it was all about. My first school, I called them back up and said, "Everything that I would ask for in the inquest, you have. Why do you want me?" They said, "To show the kids that we're not worrywarts and that we actually do things to be preventative of some behavior, and you will show them that." I didn't understand. And now I'm over 200,000 children, I understand, and I still wish I could see the crystal ball, but here's my answer. When you come in, I've had so many kids come to me and hold me and hug me. I've got 25,000 letters in this drawer next to me. I got a tote in another room with some more of them. Little letters from young people, over 25,000 of them. And some of them are very innocent and sweet and thank yous. Some of them are more personal. And, I want to change the world overnight, and I want to promise everybody miracles. I can't do that. And I also got to pace myself to know that maybe I affected one. Maybe it worked for one. Maybe I changed one and made that person in that school just a little bit better because of that one. And then there's the 25 children who have come to me thereabouts, who suggested they're staying in this world and aren't going to commit suicide because they met me. And there was a big boy with the same name as me, Michael, and he grabbed me and hugged me, and I'm a big man, and when this boy hugged me, no one could see me. He was that much more bigger than me. He told me I'd saved his life. He told me he was a homosexual. He told me that he was going to be stronger and braver, realizing that being different was okay, and I was the first person to convey that to him. And I looked at him. At least I tried. He was such a big boy, and he's hugging the daylights out of me. He said, "You wouldn't believe how close I was to suicide." And I'm trying to look in his eyes and say, "I'm a stranger to you, and I know why you bared your soul to me, but there has to be somebody closer to you in this life that you wouldn't feel that way. Embrace them people, whether it's a friend, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a stranger that is attached to you through the educational system. There has to be someone else. So if I don't know who I am or what I'm doing, I have a real good idea why I got to continue." And as a tool to support the teachers, the establishments we call schools, and the students, I can take children to places with my presentations that, unless the teachers lived it, they can't really go to. I have an ability to tell a story about a 10-year-old that is, it massages hearts, and teachers taught me if we can massage their hearts, we can make them think, and that's all I promise.
Absolutely. Such a great answer. That's exactly what I was expecting from you for
I thought it was a little long-winded, but I think I got it out there.
no, that's exactly what I believe the audience really enjoys to hear because it touches hearts and it's just one child at a time is really all that you need and really what you're trying to do. And it's
Well, you make no
definitely
mistake, every time we see those aforementioned articles in the paper, the fabric of whoever Mike Neuts is has been ripped again, and I can't shoulder the blame for all of the ones that we don't save, but I can't let it go by undetected and pretend I didn't see it.
right.
We have to effect the change because of those names. especially the one last October and then the one a few weeks ago, one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast. We can't allow that to happen. That's crazy.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of parents on this call, I believe, that are in 100% agreement, and they are possibly struggling with situations that are similar. We have an audience member asking, do you have any advice as to what to say or do when your child actually does approach you, when you do have that ability to connect with them, and they tell you a story that they have been bullied or they are being bullied, that they're being made fun of or called names? Because as a parent, this audience member's first instinct is to listen and empathize, but they really want to give him some good advice.
Well, to listen and to empathize is the most important, and for the especially for the parents of the young children, the time of day that they're hearing these stories are when they're tucking them into bed. We have facts and evidence pointing to that, which is so sad because it's a very long day, and at the end of the day is when we're saying goodnight to our children, and we're not going to be up that much longer. And when we get the bad news like that little ones give us, it's very upsetting, and your night isn't going to be as restful as you first imagined. We have to be there with them. We have to, yes, we have to listen and empathize. And as a parent, as a teacher, we have to record. A parent who calls a teacher and asks about their child being victimized, record it. If it's by the phone, by telephone, I called so-and-so at such a time on this date and spoke to the victimization of my daughter, my son, and this is the answer I got. And then if there's a second time, if you get a positive reaction and feedback, how the teacher's handling it, great, but record the conversations. And as the conversations might need to go up the ladder, then we go to the vice principal, the principal, whoever may be available for us. Then we go to the superintendent, then we go to the director of the school board, and then we go to the trustees and the director maybe at the same time, and then we talk to legal people, and I mean, some of it is worthy. If I'm being bullied every day, I'm being assaulted every day, and my money's being taken every day, there's two other things going on besides the bullying. I've been assaulted, and I'm losing my money. And I mean, I'm very busy right now trying to apply for money to bring a new under 12 protocol to Chatham-Kent. So if I'm successful, the children under 12 will be redirected towards a number of agencies, and we will find ways to make them conducive to mainstream society. And the older children, there's many things with the Young Offenders Act. I'm not calling it the Youth Justice Criminal Act, whatever it is. And there's other things we can do. But communicate, then record the conversations, record the victimization, and then start your no one can articulate or advocate better for a child than a parent. Unfortunately, for many school boards and for many teachers and for many parents, we have some parents that are just as overprotective as underprotective. And so it becomes quite a collage of different people, but that's part of the argument why we shouldn't bully. We are all different, so why would we make fun of people for being different if we don't want to live in a boring world where we're all the same?
Yes. Wow. Well, Mike, I hate that our time is running out here because we have so many questions and you have such a wealth of knowledge to really answer these accurately. I'm going to move on really quickly just to a little extra bonus of our presentation here, that we do have a $100 gift card draw that will be given away for a Scholar's Choice gift card. So this is just really to show our appreciation as well for those that have joined the call and are taking the time and initiative as a parent, as a teacher, grandparent, anything, to raise their children as peacekeepers and really make them be the change. So I'm just going to pop over to our attendee list and randomly select an audience member. So the winner of this $100 gift card, Mike, do you want to do a drum roll on your end? Oh, it's perfect. So this one will go to Rachel, and I forgive me if I'm saying your last name incorrectly. Pipitone, Rachel Pipitone is the winner of tonight's $100 Scholar's Choice gift card. Now, Rachel, I will follow up with an email to you with the details of this.
I didn't hear anyone cheer, Reagan. Maybe you should draw a couple more.
I know, we've got all the virtual cheers going on. Everyone's probably frustrated to have their microphone muted right now. So, Mike, this comes back to you here, the Make Children Better Now Foundation. You have a website at www.makechildrenbetternow.com. You have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Make Children Better Now. And you can be contacted at mike.neuts@makechildrenbetternow.org. So this information is all being displayed on the screen right now. We've even got your dream catcher, which is your logo for the foundation. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
It's part of our logo to make children's lives better. That's it. The color in the center of it is the necklace that Myles is wearing the day he was bullied. It has his name, a turtle, and a dolphin, and it was a gift from his best friend to him.
Wow. And then I know
that is there.
I've also read a little bit about how you came up with the name, and the acronym for Make Children Better Now, the MCBN, are actually Myles' initials as well?
Yes, Myles Casey Benson Neuts.
Wow.
My lawyer was pretty stunned when I did it. It took me about 20 minutes, and I was pretty stunned too, but I was pretty proud of myself.
Well, it's a very powerful name for a foundation, and then it has that really hidden meaning. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So everybody can contact you. I know we have a lot of people on the call that are asking for your information to have you speak at their school, or to maybe pick your brain about some more personal questions that they're...
I welcome it. And you know, Reagan, if I could say, I need an invite from the Parent-Teacher Council or from the principal. I can't walk into schools. That's not what I can do.
Right.
I can't invite myself. Reagan, I'd also like to say that for all those people that are out there listening with little ones, hug your children for my family, and hug your children for our nonprofit. Hug them for us. Hug them for yourselves, but hug them for us.
That's a powerful ending there. So for upcoming educational webinar information, you can check out Scholar's Choice at www.scholarschoice.ca. We also have our Facebook account, facebook.com/Scholar's Choice, and Twitter as well at www.twitter.com/Scholar's Choice. So on behalf of Scholar's Choice and myself, Mike, thank you so much for being on the call and sharing all of your information with us. Everything that you are very natural at.
Reagan, I will say two things in closing. Three. One is thank you to you and Scholar's Choice for being brave enough to step forward to challenge the subject and to speak, to take part, and I'm honored. Two, for all the folks out there, if you're close to Chatham, Ontario, or in your own community this weekend, the annual Kids Helpful and Walk is going on the first Sunday of every May, May 5th, 10 a.m. to noonish, probably in Chatham, Ontario. Make Children Better Now is the honorary chair of this event this year in Chatham, but every community is having them across our country. And if I could mention the golf tournament that Make Children Better Now is having this summer on August the 11th, come out and join us and have some fun and raise some money for young people.
Perfect. And everything on that note will be available on your website as well. Is that right?
That's right. That's
Perfect.
right.
Okay, so Mike, thank you so much. We are getting so much feedback from the audience right now, thanking you as well, and promising to give their children big hugs tonight. And
that's all I could ask. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that has joined the call as well for taking the initiative to really become aware and informed about this topic. And on that note, may everybody have a wonderful night. Thank you very much. Good night.